a 25-kilometer frontline sector in eastern Ukraine. 100 days ago, Ukrainian command initiated a systematic operation targeting Russian officer corps. The mission, eliminate command structure through precision sniper operations conducted over extended period. 47 Ukrainian sniper teams deployed across the sector. Their targets, Russian officers and specialists whose deaths would degrade enemy command effectiveness. Over 100 days, these teams would methodically eliminate 312 officers and 89 specialists. A Russian regiment would lose its entire command structure 4 times over. Leadership positions would become death sentences that officers refused to accept. This operation concluded days ago. The final casualty count represents one of the most successful sniper campaigns in modern warfare. The strategic impact of systematically destroying enemy leadership continues affecting Russian operations across multiple sectors. This is what occurred during those 100 days. Military command structures require experienced officers to function effectively. Junior officers lead small units at tactical level. Mid-level officers coordinate larger formations and link tactical to operational planning. Senior officers plan operations and direct strategies across entire sectors. Removing these leaders degrades organizational capability, disproportionate to numbers killed, because leadership effectiveness cannot be easily replaced. Sniper operations targeting leadership have historical precedent stretching back centuries. Well-trained marksmen eliminating key personnel can achieve strategic effects through tactical actions. Success requires intelligence to identify targets, exceptional skill to engage at extended ranges, and patience to wait for opportunities that might take hours or days to materialize. Ukrainian sniper operations in this sector were planned systematically at operational level. Intelligence officers compiled detailed databases of Russian officers, full names, ranks, positions, physical descriptions, behavioral patterns, typical routines. This information came from multiple sources, including intercepted radio communications, prisoner interrogations, informant reports, and continuous surveillance. Sniper teams studied their targets extensively before deployment. They learned faces from photographs captured through long-range surveillance, memorized typical daily routines established through pattern analysis, identified distinguishing characteristics, height, build, gait, mannerisms that allowed recognition from distance. When officers appeared in operational areas, snipers could recognize and prioritize them within seconds. The campaign planning emphasized systematic approach rather than targets of opportunity. Each sniper team was assigned specific officers as primary targets with alternatives if primary targets weren't accessible. Teams tracked their assigned targets' movements, learned their habits, predicted their likely positions. This methodology transformed hunting from random chance to calculated probability. The campaign began 100 days ago with deliberate targeting of junior officers. Platoon commanders, typically lieutenants leading 30 to 40 soldiers, were initial focus. These officers were most exposed operationally. They led from front during assaults, conducted forward reconnaissance, supervised defensive positions. Their duties required visibility that created vulnerability. Week 1 saw 23 junior officers killed across the sector. The effects were immediate and cascading. Russian platoons lost experienced leaders who understood their soldiers' capabilities, knew the terrain, and could make rapid tactical decisions. Replacement officers were either inexperienced lieutenants fresh from training or non-commissioned officers promoted beyond their preparation. Neither category possessed the experience of eliminated leaders. Unit effectiveness declined measurably as leadership quality degraded. Week 2 expanded targeting to company commanders, captains leading 120 to 150 soldiers. These officers required significantly more effort to locate and engage. They operated further from front lines, appeared less frequently in exposed positions, and typically had better security awareness and protective measures. Their vehicles were marked, their command posts hardened, their movements more carefully managed. Ukrainian snipers adapted methodologies. They extended engagement ranges, with some successful shots exceeding 1,000 meters. They accepted longer wait times for target opportunities, sometimes observing positions for days before targets appeared. They employed decoys and distractions to create shooting opportunities. Over Week 2, 34 company commanders were killed. Russian companies lost leadership continuity. New commanders lacked experience with their units and familiarity with local conditions. Command effectiveness continued degrading. Week 3 focused on battalion commanders, majors and lieutenant colonels, directing formations of 400 to 600 soldiers. These senior officers rarely appeared near front lines. Their primary duties involved planning and coordination, conducted from rear command posts. When they did move forward, they were usually in armored vehicles or surrounded by security personnel specifically tasked with protecting them. Sniper teams employed increasingly sophisticated tactics to engage these protected targets. They identified patterns in commander movements through patient observation over days. They predicted when and where officers would be vulnerable based on operational requirements. Commanders must visit forward positions periodically to maintain situational awareness. Teams pre-positioned in locations offering shots at these predicted positions, sometimes infiltrating behind Russian lines to establish hides. When targets appeared, snipers engaged quickly before security could react or relocate. 12 battalion commanders died in Week 3. By day 30, Russian forces in the sector recognized they were under systematic targeting campaign. Officers were being killed at rates far exceeding normal combat casualties. The pattern was unmistakable. Leadership was being deliberately hunted. Protective measures were implemented immediately. Officers were ordered to avoid exposed positions. Rank insignia were removed from uniforms to prevent identification. Movement patterns were randomized to prevent predictability. Fake officers using decoys attempted to draw sniper fire. These measures reduced officer visibility but couldn't eliminate it completely. Commanders still needed to visit forward positions to maintain morale and assess conditions directly. They needed to coordinate with subordinates face-to-face for complex planning. They needed to observe terrain personally to make informed tactical decisions. Every necessary appearance created sniper opportunities that patient hunters could exploit. The campaign's most significant success occurred on day 28. A Russian colonel commanding the regiment in this sector was killed by sniper fire at range of 1,240 meters. The engagement was textbook precision marksmanship executed after days of preparation. The sniper team had tracked this officer for 11 days, studying his patterns meticulously. They identified his preferred observation post, a slightly elevated position offering good visibility over defensive sectors. The colonel visited this position every 3 to 4 days, typically in mid-morning, staying approximately 15 to 20 minutes while observing positions through binoculars. The sniper team established a concealed position offering clear shot at the observation post from 1,240 meters distance. They waited 3 days until the colonel's predicted appearance. When the colonel arrived at the expected time and location, the sniper engaged with a single carefully aimed shot. Environmental conditions were calculated precisely: wind speed and direction, air temperature and pressure, target elevation. The bullet flight time at this range exceeded 1 second. The colonel died instantly from headshot before his security detail could react. This killing created immediate crisis in Russian command. A regimental commander represents 15 to 20 years of military experience and extensive tactical knowledge. His loss disrupted operations across the entire sector. Communication protocols broke down temporarily. Subordinate commanders lacked authority to make certain decisions. Higher command appointed a replacement immediately. Another colonel transferred urgently from reserve positions. The replacement commander arrived on day 32. He was briefed extensively on security threats. He understood his predecessor had been killed by sniper. He exercised extreme caution. He survived 4 days. On day 36, he was killed by different sniper team during forward reconnaissance conducted in armored vehicle. The shot, from 900 meters, struck the commander when he briefly opened the vehicle hatch to observe terrain through periscope. The bullet entered through the hatch opening and killed him instantly. A third regimental commander was appointed. This officer, aware of his two predecessors' fates, exercised extraordinary caution. He rarely left hardened command posts. When movement was absolutely necessary, he traveled in fully enclosed armored vehicles with heavy security escorts. He varied routes and timing unpredictably. He used decoys and diversion techniques. Ukrainian snipers adapted again. If direct engagement was impossible, they would target command infrastructure. They began engaging the colonel's command post with long-range precision fires, not attempting to kill him directly, but making the position untenable. Eventually, on day 63, they succeeded when his armored vehicle stopped briefly during movement through checkpoint. The momentary halt created a 3-second window. A sniper team positioned for exactly this contingency engaged immediately. The colonel died from shot that penetrated vehicle's vision block. A fourth regimental commander was appointed. This officer survived longest, until day 94. Ukrainian forces eventually killed him through artillery strike directed by reconnaissance that had tracked his location through electronic emissions from his command post. Over 100 days, 4 regimental commanders died. The position became openly referred to by Russian soldiers as cursed assignment or death sentence. Officers reportedly requested reassignment rather than accept regimental command in this sector. Junior officers faced similar patterns throughout the campaign. As lieutenants died, experienced sergeants were promoted to fill platoon leader positions. These promoted NCOs often lacked officer training in tactics, operations planning, and higher-level coordination. When they died, privates were promoted to sergeant, corporals to platoon sergeant. The quality of Russian leadership degraded continuously as experienced personnel were systematically eliminated and replaced by increasingly junior and unprepared individuals. By day 50, Russian units were experiencing profound leadership crisis. Companies were commanded by newly promoted lieutenants with only weeks of command experience. Battalions were commanded by captains promoted beyond their preparation, struggling with responsibilities they hadn't been trained for. The regiment's command structure had been hollowed out through targeted killings, leaving a skeleton of inexperienced officers attempting to command units in active combat. The psychological effects were profound and pervasive. Officer mortality rates created genuine fear of promotion throughout Russian ranks. Junior officers understood that advancement meant increased targeting. Promotion from lieutenant to captain meant becoming priority target. Advancement to major meant near-certain targeting. Some officers reportedly refused promotions explicitly, preferring to remain in positions less likely to be specifically targeted, even at cost of career advancement. Russian soldiers observed their leaders being killed with precision and regularity. Trust in command structure eroded severely. Soldiers reasoned logically, if officers couldn't protect themselves from snipers, despite all security measures, how could they protect their soldiers? Morale suffered dramatically as leadership deaths created pervasive perception of vulnerability. Some units experienced discipline problems as soldiers questioned orders from commanders they didn't expect to survive. Ukrainian sniper teams also systematically targeted specialists whose roles were critical to operations. Drone operators, artillery forward observers, communications personnel, electronic warfare specialists, medics specifically treating wounded officers. These individuals, while not holding officer rank, performed functions essential to Russian operational capability. Their elimination degraded effectiveness as significantly as officer casualties. Drone operators were particularly valuable targets. Russian reconnaissance and targeting capability depended heavily on drone surveillance. Operators were identifiable by distinctive equipment: control consoles, antennas, specialized vehicles. Their operational patterns made them vulnerable. They needed clear areas for launch and recovery. They focused intensely on screens during operations. They operated from relatively predictable positions. Over 100 days, 34 drone operators were killed. Each death eliminated not just an individual, but accumulated expertise. Training effective drone operators requires months. experienced operators developed skills and intuitions that took years to develop. Russian reconnaissance capability declined measurably as experienced operators died and replacements lacked the training and experience to employ drones effectively. Artillery forward observers, soldiers who directed fire missions, were targeted with similar systematic approach. These specialists operated near front lines where they could observe targets and adjust artillery fires. Their exposed positions and predictable operational patterns made them vulnerable to patient snipers. 28 forward observers died over the campaign. Russian artillery effectiveness declined dramatically without experienced observers. Artillery fires became less accurate, required more rounds to achieve effects, and often missed targets entirely. The degradation was measurable in reduced Russian artillery effectiveness metrics tracked by Ukrainian intelligence. The technical skill required for this campaign was extraordinary by any military standard. Engagements frequently occurred at ranges exceeding 800 meters, with many shots between 1,000 and 1,500 meters. At these distances, multiple factors significantly affect bullet trajectory and must be calculated precisely. Wind is primary variable. At 1,000 meters, a 10 km/h crosswind deflects a bullet approximately 1 meter. Wind speed and direction change with altitude, creating complex deflection calculations. Temperature affects air density and therefore bullet flight. Air pressure similarly affects density. Humidity influences drag. Target movement, even slow walking, creates additional complications. Successful shots at extreme range required precise range estimation, comprehensive environmental assessment, expert marksmanship, and often considerable luck. Ukrainian snipers employed sophisticated equipment unavailable to previous generations. High-precision rifles manufactured to extremely tight tolerances. Advanced optics with variable magnification, ranging to 50 power or greater. Ballistic computers that calculated trajectories incorporating all environmental variables. Laser rangefinders providing exact distances to centimeter precision. Portable weather stations measuring wind speed and direction at multiple altitudes, temperature, pressure, and humidity. Communications equipment coordinating with intelligence services and other sniper teams. Intelligence support was equally sophisticated and essential to campaign success. Signals intelligence identified officer locations through radio transmissions. Russian officers, despite encryption and communication security procedures, could be located through electronic signatures. Human intelligence from informants provided information on command post locations, officer routines, and security procedures. Reconnaissance drones provided continuous surveillance and targeting data. All information was synthesized by intelligence analysts to create comprehensive pictures of Russian command structures. The intelligence preparation was extraordinary. For each targeted officer, analysts compiled detailed profiles, biographical information, career history, known associates, personality assessments, likely behaviors, physical descriptions from multiple sources, photographs from various angles and distances, audio recordings of voices, all information organized in accessible databases that sniper teams could reference. When new officers arrived in the sector, intelligence services identified them within hours through electronic surveillance and informant networks. Profiles were compiled rapidly. Sniper teams received targeting packages, sometimes within 24 hours of officer arrival. The systematic approach meant no Russian officer could operate anonymously or safely even briefly. The campaign's cumulative effect was devastating to Russian command capability. By day 100, Russian forces in the sector had lost 312 officers across all ranks, 73 lieutenants, 147 captains, 79 majors and lieutenant colonels, 13 full colonels. 89 specialists were also killed. Drone operators, forward observers, communications technicians, electronic warfare operators, and other critical personnel. This represented multiple complete turnovers of the regiment's officer corps. Every leadership position had been filled, emptied by casualties, and refilled multiple times. Some positions changed hands 4 or 5 times as replacement officers were killed and replaced repeatedly. Current officers had minimal experience. Many had been promoted from enlisted ranks only weeks earlier. Command effectiveness was fraction of pre-campaign levels, possibly as low as 30% of original capability. The economic calculations were sobering when fully analyzed. Training an officer requires years of investment. Military academy costs hundreds of thousands of dollars per graduate. Specialized courses, field training, and operational experience represent additional investment. A regimental commander embodies decades of training and experience, costing millions of dollars in aggregate investment. 4 regimental commanders killed represents loss of approximately 120 combined years of military experience. This experience cannot be rapidly replaced regardless of resources available. Lower-ranking officers represent similar proportional investments. A lieutenant with 3 years' experience required 3 years of military academy plus prior enlisted service. A captain required 7 to 10 years total military service and training. Losing 312 officers meant losing thousands of man-years of training and experience that couldn't be quickly replaced regardless of Russia's training pipeline capacity. Russian replacement pipeline couldn't keep pace with attrition rates. Officer training programs require minimum 6 months for accelerated courses, typically 1 to 4 years for normal progression. The campaign killed officers faster than military academies could produce replacements even at maximum capacity. Russian forces resorted increasingly to field promotions of enlisted personnel, creating officers without proper preparation. These field-promoted officers lacked doctrinal knowledge, tactical training, and leadership skills normally acquired through formal officer education. Ukrainian forces demonstrated conclusively that systematic targeting of enemy leadership is viable operational strategy when executed with proper resources and sustained commitment. The requirements are substantial but achievable. Sophisticated intelligence apparatus to identify targets, precision weapons systems to engage them at extended ranges, highly trained personnel to execute complex operations, and patience to sustain operations over extended periods, accepting that results accumulate gradually. The campaign concluded after 100 days when Ukrainian forces shifted tactical focus to other sectors where similar campaigns were initiated. The sniper teams redeployed, taking their expertise to new areas where they would apply learned methodologies. Behind them remained Russian units with decimated leadership, struggling to maintain even basic operational effectiveness. The numbers define the campaign's success unambiguously. 401 total casualties over 100 days, 312 officers across all ranks, 89 specialists performing critical functions, 4 regimental commanders, 100 days of systematic operations sustained without interruption, approximately 4 targeted kills per day averaged over the entire period, representing extraordinary operational tempo for precision operations. This is modern precision warfare, where strategic effects result from accumulated tactical precision, where systematic elimination of leaders destroys organizational capability more effectively than destroying equipment, where 100 days of patient hunting creates multi-year degradation in enemy capability that cannot be rapidly restored. The campaign is complete. The targets are dead, buried, or forever disabled. The regiment struggles with leadership vacuum that will require years to properly fill. And Russian forces learn harsh lessons that officer positions in targeted sectors are not career assignments, but death sentences, that promotions in these areas become feared rather than sought, that 100 days of systematic sniper operations destroys command structures more thoroughly than conventional combat operations. Welcome to warfare, where precision marksmanship achieves strategic operational goals, where systematically killing leaders proves more valuable than killing soldiers, where 100 days of patient systematic operations changes battlefield dynamics permanently and creates effects that persist for years after operations conclude.